there's something very, very simple here. I've mentioned before how in the New Testament, Jesus mocks these ones on the bottom. They go into the marketplace in their robes and their hats and their sashes, and they do it to make others think they're so special and important. These are the Pharisees. That's the biggest problem Jesus was always going off on them about, was that they couldn't get it because it was all about the outside. The outside is what mattered. The rituals, they really lacked wisdom. So they would say to Jesus, you can't do that on the Sabbath. And Jesus just was always like, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. You're so focused on the rituals, you don't even know me. And they didn't. And Jesus was so harsh on these people. Now, everybody knows, what is above those Pharisees. How is what's above them any different? It's almost as if they just continued on in the Old Testament. The New Testament, it's not that it was erasing the old, but you don't get to just stay in the Old Testament. You can, but literally, they should have known who Jesus was. But they made it all about the outside. And yet I see that happening today. And I'm not trying to attack a certain denomination here. I don't even want to mention it. It's kind of obvious. But it's almost as if the Pharisees just continued on. And continued on their sacrifices. Because when Jesus mocked these people, and he mocked them all the time, but he did mock them over, because in the Old Testament, there's a whole, all in Exodus, it's about where the priests wearing, this is what they should wear, a lot of what you see here. But they destroyed that because they no longer understood God, because it was all about the outside. It was all about that you're somehow going to be saved if you are strict to the Sabbath, even if somebody's dying in front, like you wouldn't go and help somebody because, I can't, it's the Sabbath. Like Jesus was like, you should know when I'm not, like, they just didn't understand God. So, how everybody knows the story about the biggest time that Jesus got angry, and he rarely did. But it was when he flipped the tables over in the temple, right? Because, the corporations were in there selling everything. They were just selling. They were using the temple to do the very last thing Jesus wanted them to do. So, given that Jesus flipped tables back then, what do you think Jesus would do now to the church? Given the child abuse, the trafficking. Just think about that, because he had rage when he flipped those tables over and was whipping them all out of the temple. Just over selling linens or whatever they were selling. Using the temple as a marketplace to sell their goods. Now just, spring forward to now. And what's been going on in the church. Do you think that God's going to be like, thank you for upholding this. Thank you for protecting the outside, because that's what's most important to me. No, because that's what the Pharisees did. It was all about the outside. It's the same thing as the ones on the top. They literally spend so much time on how they look on the outside that it's no different than the Pharisees. They don't know God. This is ridiculous. It is. And this is literally like what Jesus said. No, you're just trying to make yourselves look special. Like that you're somehow more holy. No. So the reason it like in the Old Testament, yes, God wanted certain linens and the priests to look this way, but Then when Jesus came, that got all scrapped. Jesus didn't go to priests. Again, they were the Pharisees. They weren't getting it. So why did they continue on with all of this, show with still wearing these garments? I mean, it literally kind of goes against what Jesus wanted. But then I think all of these people, they wanted to stay in the Old Testament. So I'm bringing that up just because of the fact that it's rather funny that nobody in the denominations realized that Jesus mocked all of this, because he realized, no, they were focusing too much on the outside. That's why I'm going to go to the nobodies. I'm not making them wear anything special. They're going to go on and carry my word. It's not going to be about what outfit they're wearing or their clothing. It's just going to be what I want them to carry and present, which is my word, not all this frill. Also, don't people think that there's likely a reason that that God literally said, to get to the Father, you have to go through me? I'm just taking a guess here, but I think that he probably said it because he knew that people would come in and try to focus people on Mother Mary. The problem with that avenue is, even if you want to do it, that's fine. It doesn't get you to the Holy Spirit, so you just run around chasing Mary. So it just seems to me that Jesus literally said, you won't get to the Father, you won't get to God unless you go through me. So you can spend all that time running around after Mary, because the whole argument is that Mary helps get you to Jesus. But the problem with that is that you can just go right to Jesus. So I just wanted to mention that. Jesus called these people a brood of vipers. Yep, because they were all about decorating the outside, how the outside looked, following the rituals, not understanding, never once understanding, or just trying to trip Jesus up, and they never were able to. But it's like that same legacy the Pharisees have continued on. Jesus was woeing the Pharisees all the time, to the point of saying that they will go to hell. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like the whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. See any of that going on today? Another one, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. So again, why wearing all the outfits and it's all just like the Pharisees. We're so holy, but not on the inside. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corner, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and every herb, and neglect justice and the love of God. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others. There's no way that God would want a church protected at the sacrifice of so many abused children. And as it says, but when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to baptism, he said to them, you brood of vipers. Because they never were getting it. Always just caring about what the outside looked like, not the heart.